Owning Your Shadow is an insightful book that deals with the human psyche. It reveals a number of significant facts about the hidden side of humanity. The latter controls people unconsciously and make them behave in awkward ways in different plights. These factors force them to have unbalanced life. In his book, Robert A. Johnson gives more clarity to the shadow, how it works, and how a person can own it. At the beginning of his masterpiece, Robert defines three interrelated terms: persona, ego, and shadow. The persona is the characteristics that we want to show to others, how we desire to be seen by the world. It is like the clothes we wear to give a particular impression. The ego is what we are and know about. The shadow is what we fail to see, the dark side that lays in the subconscious. The shadow originates from our culture. We are born whole, but later things are separated into good and evil. As we grow, we come to know that there are acceptable characteristics and principles that we should adhere to and unacceptable characteristics that we should dispose of. From the cultural point of view, there is always right and wrong. And to be a civilized citizen and not a primitive one, we should choose the acceptable side. However, the unacceptable characteristics that we get rid of do not disappear or vanish completely. Instead, they collect in the dark side of our personality and lead a life of their own. This is how the shadow making process begins. The shadow over time can be as powerful as our ego, and it can even surpass it sometimes. Also, the variety of cultures around the world creates various shadows. For instance, in the West, it is fine if you enter a holy place wearing a pair of shoes. This shows respect. But in the East, it is disrespectful to walk to a temple with your pair of shoes. So, what is acceptable in one's culture may not be acceptable in other cultures. Our shadows are shaped differently depending on the place we reside in. Therefore, balancing culture and shadow is the essential key to have a good life. To clarify this point, the writer gives a typical example. Let's imagine that there is a seesaw in which the acceptable characteristics that we should affix to is on the right hand side, while the unacceptable ones are on the left hand side. These two sides should stay in equilibrium or a flip will happen. What's more is that if the seesaw is too heavily loaded, the fulcrum or its center point will break. Robert asserts that to own our shadow is to reach an inner point in the personality, and this is a difficult task to accomplish. The problem is that people focus too much on the right side. They are inclined to show the others the good side to satisfy their zeal and get along with the culture. They kind of ignore the left side of the seesaw and neglect its existence. Many people overlook the fact that there are two sides of everything. To act is to sin, and to build is to destroy. The light will always need darkness. These opposing terms complete each other. Together, they make who we are and give a meaning to our lives. Accepting that life has this dichotomy, like good and evil, will help us appreciate the idea of ego and shadow that are both originate from the same source, which is culture, as Carl Jung said. With no doubt, what occurs to human beings if there is no balance may result in hurting others. Robert tells a story of his own to clarify this point. One day he had so many guests at home who stayed longer than expected. In spite of these factors, he stayed calm and generous, and when they left, he felt relieved. After a while, he went to a nurseryman to buy some plants, and this ended badly. He insulted the nurseryman without any reason. He landed his shadow on him. What happened is that once he was acting nicely with the guests, the opposite of those nice things were collecting in his dark side, and this resulted in his odd behavior with the man. Being oblivious of what we do and how our shadow works can hurt people. The way shadow works is that all good acts will have an equal weight on the opposite side. Narrow creativity brings narrow shadow, and the opposite is true too. Technology, for example, has facilitated our lives, but it also caused depression and other psychological problems. The best way to keep doing good things without causing damage resulting from our shadow is to make symbolic acts. The unconscious does not distinguish between a real act and a symbolic one. In case we act from the right-hand side, we have to balance this from the left-hand side too. Thus, if we do something good in the real life, we can simply honor the dark side by doing a symbolic act like writing a story, burning something, or anything else of such kind. This can trick the subconscious since it does not make a difference between the two acts. The shadow projection is common among people nowadays. A man may have a hard day, so he lays his shadow on his children or his wife. This will make the process continue until one ends the cycle of shadow projection. To achieve this goal, we should stay calm, for example, until the person projecting his shadow gets aware of what he is doing and stops. To own our shadow is to reach an inner place, and to do so, we need first to accept that there are two sides of everything, and that this paradox is what gives our life a meaning. And then we can make sure to watch ourselves and keep the balance so that we can have a good life. And this, of course, needs time and commitment. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.